Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. President Biden meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Paris today. Biden's agenda includes another speech in Normandy and a $225 million aid package for Ukraine. NTD's Adress reports from France.
President Biden and 16 other world leaders call for Hamas to accept a ceasefire in Gaza. And Houthi terrorists in Yemen vow to step up attacks on Israel and unveil what they say is a new missile. We have the latest on the conflict in the Middle East.
President Biden and former President Trump trade jabs over immigration, and Biden speaks on his latest executive order, updates from the race to the White House.
The prosecution in the Hunter Biden criminal trial is wrapping up its case, but have they proven the younger Biden lied on the gun registration form? Arlene Richards has the latest from yesterday's testimony.
A news app in the U.S. with Chinese origins allegedly produces news stories that never happened using AI-generated content. We get the details with the host of Business Matters.
D-Day commemorations are in full swing in Normandy. Historical reenactments are bringing the unforgettable events back to life. NTD heard from participants reliving the day.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning and happy Friday. Today is June 7th, and today's top news is actually that any moment now, President Biden and President Zelenskyy are expected to meet.
Yes, and their meeting comes right as Ukraine is about to get in its most intense fighting since the early days of the war. Yeah, and right now, Ukraine is basically just shutting off its power, rolling blackouts, because their energy infrastructure has been targeted by Russian attacks, just bearing down on them, and that's as Russia is claiming to make advances in the eastern Donetsk region.
Right, and it actually seems like they just met this morning, and Zelenskyy has also made his case in the French parliament and saying why the challenge that Ukraine is facing should concern all of Europe for its security.
Yes, and we're going to see President Biden here meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Paris. They're about to speak pretty soon, as the U.S. is set to announce more aid, as we mentioned.
And Biden reaffirmed U.S. support for Ukraine, and Zelenskyy expresses his gratitude to the president.
It comes before Biden's major speech on freedom and democracy. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao is in Paris.
And President Biden on Friday will give a speech about freedom and democracy at Point du Hoc in Normandy. And that's a famous place in American military history, as that's the tall cliff where Army Rangers scaled to take fortified German positions. The White House says he will talk about the stakes of that moment in World War II and frame it as an existential fight between freedom and dictatorship. More importantly, he'll use that historical moment to talk about the present and contrast himself with his 2024 rival, former President Trump. Yesterday at a D-Day commemoration ceremony also in Normandy, Biden, though without mentioning his rival by name, struck common themes in his 2024 campaign, among which defending democracy.
We defend democracy. We stand together.
Bolstering NATO.
Isolationism was not the answer 80 years ago and is not the answer today.
And supporting Ukraine.
We will not walk away.
But today we expect to hear a more explicit tone from President Biden targeting voters at home in the U.S. He'll also talk about the dangers of isolating the U.S. on the world stage, which he has accused Trump of trying to do. Meanwhile, he's also going to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Friday right here in Paris. And that's after the two met also in Normandy on Thursday. Reporting from Paris, Iris Tao, NTD News.
And Cuba says 4 Russian ships, will arrive in Havana next week.
This comes as Russia responds to increased U.S. support for Ukraine.
Cuba's foreign ministry said none of the ships, including one nuclear-powered submarine, will carry nuclear weapons and are not meant to be a threat to the region.
Anonymous U.S. officials said earlier they were tracking Russian warships en route to a military exercise. They called the presence notable, but not concerning.
The U.S. and its allies recently authorized Ukraine to use their weapons to strike targets within Russian territory for the first time since the war began.
Russian President Putin said Wednesday these actions could lead to very serious problems, warning that Russia could provide long-range weapons to strike Western targets.
And switching gears, the leader of the Houthis in Yemen says the group is working with other Iranian-backed terrorists to increase attacks against Israel.
The Houthis claim to have attacked 2 ships at a northern Israeli port. Israel's military says that's not true.
The Houthis released a video of a missile launch they say targeted Israel's southern port city, Eilat.
The terrorist group called it a new type of ballistic missile and said it was unveiling it for the first time. It's not clear what speed the missile travels at or when the video was filmed.
The Houthis aren't known to have the ability to build complicated missile and guidance systems locally. The missile resembles an Iranian missile that Iran claims is hypersonic. Iran has repeatedly been caught arming the Houthis despite a United Nations embargo.
U.S. Central Command says the Houthis launched one anti-ship ballistic missile yesterday from Yemen over the Red Sea. CENTCOM said it destroyed 9 Houthi drones and 2 drone boats over the last day.
And this all comes at a time when the tensions between Israel and Hezbollah are also at risk of boiling over. Cross-border attacks are ramping up, and now Prime Minister Netanyahu has issued a stern warning. Let's get some more insights into the tense situation. We're bringing in Avi Melamed for more. He's a former Israeli intelligence official and former senior official on Arab affairs. Good morning. Good to see you again, Avi. Now, like I just hinted on, Netanyahu has just said that they are ready with an extremely powerful response, is how he put it. So do people have to brace for all-out war in Lebanon now?
Well, we are definitely looking at a process of escalation. I would mention, however, that for the time being, to the best of my reading, it seems like both sides, Israel and Hezbollah, still are conducting a self-restraint, and both are basically prefer to avoid escalation towards a full-scale confrontation. That being said, we have to remember this is a dynamic that could result in, even though maybe the two sides are not interested, this is a dynamic that could result in the end of the day, a massive war.
So do you still see a diplomatic solution to this then? You just mentioned that both sides are still exercising self-restraint.
Yes, theoretically, yes. And I think there is still place and space to try and to exhaust the diplomatic efforts. We have to remember also that in Lebanon, of course in Israel, but in Lebanon, the Lebanese are clearly saying to the Hezbollah, we don't want to be part of this war. This is not our war. Do not drag us to this war. The problem of the Lebanese is that they are being occupied by the Iranians through the Hezbollah. And the Hezbollah is the one that in the end of the day is dictating its radical agenda, and its masters the Iranian radical agenda.
So Hezbollah has actually also said that they don't want an all-out war. What do you make of that?
Hezbollah is the most significant tool in the arsenal of the Iranians in terms of the proxies. And as far as the Iranian regime is concerned, the Hezbollah's mission has 2 missions. One is to make sure that the Iranian grip in Iran will tighten and deepen. And the other thing is that the Hezbollah is supposed to be some sort of a card, a deterrence card in the hands of the Iranians against anyone who may try to attack Iranian strategic assets. So in the end of the day, the Iranian wouldn't like to jeopardize so much their most significant valuable asset, the Hezbollah, and hence, for the time being, the self-restraint of the Hezbollah.
Understood. Now, Israeli President Herzog asked world leaders to act so that events don't spiral out of control. Tell me more about what he is expecting them to do, and what can they do?
It all goes back to the same old story. The major challenge here is the Iranian regime. This is a regime that is enormously dangerous. Every day we have another example. You just saw report about the Houthis in Yemen. The Houthis are proxies of the Iranians, and those missiles, as you accurately indicated, They were not produced by the Yemenite Houthis. They were produced in Iran by the Iranians. They provide the knowledge and the military know-how. So in the end of the day, it goes back to the same simple but most significant challenge, and that is the need to confront decisively the mullah regime in Tehran, the Western powers that could be the only relevant player in that regard. The Western powers up until now hesitant to do that, and the outcome of that is that in every day that goes by, the mullah regime is gaining momentum. Its proxies in the region are spreading havoc, destruction, and dangers not only to the region, but beyond the region. Going back to the Houthis are jeopardizing the world economy. They took the world economy hostage in the service of the Iranians, and the Western leaders are basically standing there almost unable to do something significant in order to stop that process. But it's not because they are unable, they are not willing to do because they are simply afraid of confronting that regime. The problem is if you don't deal with a bully when it's small, you're going to deal with this bully when he's big. And this is exactly what we see today with the Iranian regime.
Very interesting insights. Well, that's unfortunately all the time we have today to speak about that. Thank you so much, Avim Elamed, for your insights as always.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
President Biden and leaders from 16 other countries are urging Hamas to accept a ceasefire deal. The first phase of Biden's proposed deal would last at least 6 weeks. It includes a complete ceasefire, Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and the release of women, elderly, and wounded hostages. That would be in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Additionally, up to 600 truckloads of food would reach Gaza daily. In Phase 2, Hamas would release its remaining captives, including male Israeli soldiers. If successful, Israel would withdraw entirely, making the ceasefire permanent. The third phase involves reconstructing Gaza and Hamas turning over the remains of dead hostages. Top Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, have said any deal that leaves Hamas in power is unacceptable.
And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he will present the truth about the war against Hamas before Congress.
House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell announced yesterday that Netanyahu will address a joint session of Congress on July 24.
It was not immediately clear if Netanyahu would meet with President Biden during his visit. In recent weeks, the president has become more critical of Israel's tactics.
Senate Leader Chuck Schumer said in a separate statement that he joined Republican leaders in making the invitation to Netanyahu. The Israeli military has reported striking a United Nations school in the Gaza Strip. The IDF says terrorists were in the school, while others say there were no gunmen at the school at all. NTD's Jason Perry has the details, and a warning, this report contains footage that some viewers may find disturbing.
Residents in the central Gaza Strip helped carry bodies to ambulances after Israeli airstrikes hit a school. The school was run by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA, and it was housing about 6,000 people, according to the agency. However, Israel Defense Forces said a Hamas compound was embedded inside the school. And on Wednesday night, Israel Defense Forces reported using precision targeting to strike the school. The damage to the school appears to correlate with the infographic the IDF released. Based on its intelligence, Israel assessed that there were 20 to 30 terrorists inside the school during the strike. However, a Hamas official said at least 40 people were killed, including women and children.
I was wounded at the school. The school does not have anyone who is wanted. There are no armed people in it. I was sitting next to my father. May God have mercy on him. Then suddenly I felt something on my head. Lots of blocks, rubble fell on my legs. Then I fell unconscious.
An Israeli government spokesperson also commented on the strike.
The compound was used for staging attacks and as a forward operating base. Our strike was based on intelligence and used precise munitions, using surveillance and intelligence. You know, we actually called it off twice just to be sure that we were precise and to limit any unwanted civilian casualties.
Jason Perry, NTD News.
U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller says the U.S. has been in contact with Israel about the UNRWA school strike. He says Washington expects Israel to be fully transparent in making information about the strike public. Heading to break now. Up next, the prosecution in the Hunter Biden criminal trial is wrapping up its case. But have they proven the younger Biden lied on the gun registration form? NTD's Arlene Richards has the latest.
The world has had time to reflect on the guilty verdict in Trump's New York criminal case. NTD's Chris Spears hit the streets of the Big Apple for reactions. Get that after the break.
Art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Heatwave.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then a second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container, because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Good to have you back. Federal prosecutors called some of their last witnesses yesterday in the Hunter Biden criminal trial. The first son is accused of illegally buying a handgun while addicted to drugs.
A key witness for the prosecution, Hallie Biden, testified that she witnessed Hunter Biden looking high in the month that he owned the gun. NTD's legal correspondent Arlene Richards has more.
A crucial witness may be the prosecution's only hope for convincing the jury that Hunter Biden was actively using drugs when he bought a gun. Hunter's sister-in-law, Hallie Biden, who he was romantically involved with, is the only witness who spent time with Biden between October 6 to 22, 2018. Her testimony Thursday was key in linking Hunter's drug use with the day he purchased the gun and for the days he possessed it afterwards. Prosecutors must prove that the president's son knowingly lied on a gun registration form about his addiction and use of illegal drugs. President Biden told ABC in an interview Thursday that he would not pardon his son if he is convicted. Hallie testified that she found the gun in the younger Biden's truck and put it in a leather pouch along with the ammunition, then threw them in a dumpster. She said she also found drugs and drug paraphernalia in the truck and that Hunter appeared to be high when she saw him in October. The defense hammered her on cross-examination to remember the details of what happened after she found the gun. The first son's attorney used phone records and text messages to piece together a timeline. Hallie admitted that she didn't witness Hunter smoking crack or drinking alcohol during the relevant time period, which is helpful for Hunter's defense. But she couldn't recall many of the details after Hunter found out she got rid of the gun. The defense has argued that Hunter was trying to hide from Hallie after he bought the gun and lied to her in text messages about smoking crack. Hallie confirmed that there were times when Hunter wouldn't tell her the truth. Earlier Thursday, Gordon Cleveland returned to the stand for cross-examination. He's the man who sold Hunter Biden the gun in 2018. The defense asked questions about the federal form Hunter filled out to purchase the gun. Cleveland had testified that he watched the younger Biden fill out the form and that he didn't ask for any help. The defense attempted to get testimony about store employees, later altering the form, but the judge ruled earlier that it was irrelevant. The prosecution objected several times before Cleveland could answer questions about it. Other prosecution witnesses included Delaware police officers who responded to Hallie's report of throwing away the gun. One of them testified that the box of ammunition was missing 2 bullets. The prosecution is expected to rest its case Friday after calling 2 more witnesses.
One takeaway now is that none of the witnesses were able to say they saw Hunter Biden smoking or drinking in the month he purchased the gun.
But the prosecution has shown the jury evidence of Hunter Biden's addiction, including his own account of it in his memoir. But to prove their case, the prosecution has to show the jury that Biden was in fact using drugs during the time he bought and possessed that gun, and that he knew he was an addict. And without that evidence, the jury may not convict Biden.
And how does New York City view the former president's unprecedented guilty verdict 1 week after the jury's decision?
NTD's Chris Spears, co-host of NTD News Today, hit the streets of the Big Apple to find out.
50% of Americans think the guilty verdict in former President Donald Trump's New York criminal trial is correct. That's according to a recent ABC News Ipsos poll. That same poll found that 49% of Americans think that Trump should suspend his campaign over the verdict. Let's hear what people in New York City have to say about all this.
I think he's not guilty. That's my point of view.
I feel like there's definitely a lot of political agendas that are being involved in the case, maybe to try to sway the voters from the upcoming election. But I don't know. I personally am a Trump fan. So.
Well, I actually followed it very closely. I wasn't in the courtroom. If you're not in the courtroom, it's really hard to have an outsider's perspective. And I'm a trial lawyer. At least I was in my prior incarnation. No, I thought the jury, there was overwhelming evidence of his guilt. I don't think the defense really argued much to the contrary.
I think the verdict is maybe a little tainted, but not a lot. I think that the verdict is correct.
I think it's correct as well.
Why is that?
No one is above the law in New York or in the States.
And so that same poll that we're talking about says that 49% of Americans think that Donald Trump should suspend his presidential campaign because of the guilty verdict. What do you think about that?
That's a very difficult thing to decide. When 50% of Americans still want him to run, I think he should.
No, he should not suspend anything. He should keep going. He's the best.
I don't know. I personally don't think he should suspend his campaign because I feel like people are still going to vote for him regardless.
I think that that's a very logical and sensible thing to do.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think he should keep going. I support Trump for my own personal reasons, but I think he should just keep on going.
Trump and President Joe Biden are scheduled to debate in about 3 weeks on June 27th. Trump's sentencing date for his New York criminal trial is about 2 weeks after that, on July 11th. The RNC is reportedly making backup plans for Trump to receive the nomination if he is in fact in jail during that party's convention. That is scheduled for July 15th through July 18th. Chris Beers, NTD News.
The Republican National Committee is gearing up a contingency plan in case former President Trump is in jail during the Republican National Convention and can't accept the party's nomination in person. The chairman says he expects Trump to be there. To discuss this, we're bringing in Jeff Career, a political analyst and TV radio host. Good morning, Jeff. Does this contingency plan suggest the Republican Party is all in for Trump, jailed felon or not?
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. Yes, I mean he won overwhelmingly in the primaries across the country. He got millions more votes than his nearest competitor. That poll that was cited is one snapshot. I can give you other polls, Kevin, that show that he is still leading. And from all the averages that I've looked at, the conviction has not decreased his support any. In fact, when you average all the polls, Real Clear Politics average, he's 0.2% higher than he was. So it's a wash, basically. So I think the Republicans would face a lot of furious Trump voters and supporters if they tried to pull the nomination from him. I do not see that happening.
So, Jeff, although it's unlikely for many reasons, can you paint a picture of what Trump accepting the nomination remotely would look like and how all the various media would categorize that?
Well, his opponents are calling him a convicted felon, so a lot of the media that's opposed to him is going to say, well, he's accepting the nomination either from home incarceration or from prison, so he should be viewed very negatively. There's another way of looking at it, Kevin. In fact, that this might make him even more of a political rock star in that people will feel more support for him, and it might boomerang on those that are pushing this. And I think there's going to be some hesitation to put him in prison. It's never been done before. It could just generate even more support. So I don't think that's going to happen. For a charge like this, a conviction like this, it's very rare for the individual to be actually imprisoned. He could be put on some kind of a home incarceration where he could address the crowd via video link, and that kind of appearance would generate a lot of support. So, of course, all of this is unprecedented, Kevin.
It is, and when we look at the timeline here, his sentencing is expected to be handed down on July 11th, July 15th to the 18th, the convention. Trump has 30 days to appeal it, and he could ask the judge to hold off on the sentence while that appeals process plays out, meaning that there could be no jail time for him before the election, even if there were to be. Here's what the DNC Rapid Response Director said in response to all this at the RNC. Even before Trump's conviction, his inner circle was full of convicts and fraudsters. And now that Trump's handpicked RNC chair is willing to have Trump accept the nomination from jail, that means that they're aligned with a criminal who is undermining democracy and the justice system. Does this argument hold up?
I think a lot of people look at that as being a very partisan, obvious Democrat viewpoint. The other side is that the Department of Justice has been weaponized against President Trump, and that this is not something that is part of the American tradition. You don't go after your political opponents and try to sideline them during a campaign when the other person is leading. You see that in banana republics around the country. So I think there's a counter argument to that. And then the Republicans can also say, Kevin, we'll look at the president's own family. There have been criminal referrals now about his son and his brother. And of course, his son is on trial. So they can point to certainly a lot of problems with Joe Biden and his family, and a lot of questions about the behavior of key Democrats. So you can play that game both ways. Here's what I think the American people want to see. They want to see candidates who are going to put forward issues that are going to help them with the problems that we have now, including the bad economy. I think they're looking for solutions as opposed to trying to label somebody a felon and saying, oh, he cannot be accepted by the American people. The American people, I think, are looking for help for the problems that we're having in our country.
Well, thank you for your time this morning. Jeff Career, political analyst and TV radio host.
Thanks, Kevin.
And still to come, top election officials are split over rules for AI-generated political ads.
Some say disclosure is needed to address an anticipated surge of deepfakes. Others feel it could sow chaos among political campaigns. We'll take a look at both takes. And President Biden and former President Trump trade jibes over immigration and the president's latest executive order. Updates from the race to the White House.
Did you know indoor air quality can be 5 to even 100 times worse than outdoors? Meet the Air Doctor. It's your answer for clean air and the only hospital-grade air purifier equipped with advanced Ultra HEPA filters, proven to improve your indoor air quality and overall health. Air Doctor circulates and triple filters the air in your room up to 5 times per hour. Say goodbye to pollen, smoke, mold spores, pet dander, even viruses, because the Ultra HEPA filter removes virtually 100% of dangerous contaminants down to 0.003 microns. That's 100 times smaller filtration than ordinary HEPA purifiers. This would have been in your lungs. Finally, get relief from allergies and asthma and reduce airborne disease.
It's pulling the pollutants out. It's even pulling the toxic chemicals that our cleaning products leave behind.
Call or go to tryair40.com now. Get 40% off our best-selling air purifier.
Call 1-800-876-0163. Call now.
Presenting the heritage of traditional Chinese martial arts, fostering martial ethics, and reviving the true tradition. Preliminaries of the 2024 NTD International Traditional Chinese Martial Arts Competition will be held across Germany, Taiwan, and New York. The grand finals will be broadcast live online worldwide in September 2024. For more information, please call 1-888-477-9228.
Do you believe in Jesus?
The one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
We're gonna walk straight out of here, pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here.
I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Salvation is a gift.
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of the Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
Good to have you back.
And if you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines.
President Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy spoke in Paris today. Biden apologized to Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian people for a months-long holdup in military aid. Biden says Americans are standing with Ukraine for the long haul. He said the U.S. is still in completely and thoroughly. This just before the U.S. announced another $225 million in aid to Ukraine.
And congressional leaders say Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will address a joint session of Congress on July 24th.
President Biden and leaders from 16 other countries are urging Hamas to accept a Gaza ceasefire deal. The proposal's first phase includes a hostage exchange and increased humanitarian aid.
More prosecution witnesses testified in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial. Beau Biden's widow, Hallie Biden, detailed her relationship with Hunter Biden and his drug use around the time of the gun purchase.
And former President Trump attended his first rally yesterday since his guilty verdict in New York.
Addressing supporters, he said he will reverse President Biden's executive order on border security if he wins the election. Meanwhile, Biden says Trump is to blame for the current border situation.
I want to send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home where they belong. They have to go back home. Because quite simply, Joe Biden wants an invasion. I want a deportation.
Former President Trump told his Arizona supporters their state has become a, quote, dumping ground. He promised one of his first actions if re-elected would be to reverse President Biden's border security order. Biden's new border restrictions will prevent immigrants illegally crossing the southern border from seeking asylum if the average number of illegal crossings goes above 2,500 a day. Trump Thursday called the order pro-invasion, pro-child trafficking, and pro-drug dealer. He vowed to terminate what he called the Biden administration's open border policies. He said he would impose tariffs on countries that don't work to stop the flow of illegal immigrants into the U.S. Meanwhile, President Biden said in an exclusive ABC interview that he issued the order only after Republicans shot down what he called much broader reforms in Congress.
They sat for 4 weeks. They came up with a proposal that would have gone much further, would have been the most significant change in border security in our history. Guess what? Trump didn't want it, so he got on the phone and told people don't support it.
When asked if he is ready to debate Trump, Biden said yes. He added that he wants to remind people of what he believes and what Trump believes. Biden said he is about the country while Trump is about himself.
And Trump also said in interviews yesterday he would announce his running mate at the Republican National Convention next month.
And at the intersection of politics and tech, U.S. election officials are split on disclosure rules for artificial intelligence in political ads. The rules would require disclosure but not ban AI use. Some officials fear AI content could mislead voters in the upcoming elections. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the proposed rules.
The top two Federal Election Commission officials are split over whether TV and radio political ads should have to disclose AI-generated content. FEC Vice Chair Ellen Weintraub backed a proposed rule by the Federal Communications Commission Thursday and said it was time to act. The rule would require disclosure of AI content in political ads, but not ban it outright. FEC Chair Sean Cooksey criticized the plan. He says mandatory disclosures would conflict with existing law and regulations, and sow chaos in political campaigns. Washington fears AI-generated content could mislead voters in this year's elections. The Federal Communications Commission said artificial intelligence will probably play a substantial role in 2024 ads. FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel said Thursday it's about disclosure, warning of the potential for misleading deep fakes. The proposed rule would require written and on-air disclosures for cable, radio, and satellite TV, but the FCC doesn't have authority over internet or social media ads. The agency has already taken steps against misleading AI in political robocalls. Political AI content drew attention in January this year after a fake robocall of President Biden tried to deter voters in the New Hampshire Democratic primary. The AI voice use led to the state filing charges against the Democratic political consultant behind the robocalls. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Local lawmakers are trying to overturn New York City's sanctuary city laws. This comes after a growing number of crimes committed by illegal immigrants. NTD's Fiona G has more.
The New York City Common Sense Caucus introduced legislation that they hope will help to repeal sanctuary city laws. Leader of the caucus, Councilmember Robert Holden, says that the current sanctuary city laws allow criminals to enter the city easily and without detection.
Why shield criminals? Why? If they attack 40 people and they have a robbery gang, do we want to keep them so they can victimize more citizens? It's certainly insane to do that. But it's common sense to get rid of these laws. They don't protect immigrants, they protect criminals.
As the mayor stated back in February, that he was going to start to open the doors of communication so that we could once again bring ICE and our police together and deport these criminals.
I think a city that chooses to be a sanctuary city that votes on that sort of gets to have those policies, and federal enforcement sort of will have to find another way around. I think it's just a positive thing for there to be cities that, allow immigrants to have refuge. I think that's important that New York gets to play that role.
I think that's a good idea. I think they should revoke the sanctuary city laws.
Why do you think so?
Why? Because I think we need to have better control over the immigrants coming into our country as well as our cities. I am pro-immigrant, but I do think it has to be an orderly process.
Supporters of proposed legislation say that sanctuary city laws are actually preventing the NYPD from working together with federal agencies in order to identify and detain criminals entering the country illegally. They cited an incident from earlier this week when 2 New York police officers were shot by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. Now, Councilman Holden is emphasizing that legislation would target criminals and not immigrants. Fiona G., NTD News.
And coming up, a news app in the U.S. with Chinese origins allegedly produces news stories that never happened using AI-generated content. We get the details with the host of Business Matters.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Dayy's coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dayy's enzyme fermented coffee.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. They're always in their own world. What'd you get there? Twice the work. Twice the surprises. Just try it. Good. But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling. I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those barbecues you plan in detail for your family? Or your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
Welcome back, everyone. Joining us now is NTD's Business Matters host, Don Ma, to give us the latest updates from the business world.
Don, what's going on with this news fiction?
Right, so I don't know if you guys use this app. It's called Newsbreak, but apparently a lot of people do use it. So it's actually one of the most downloaded news apps in the United States. So Newsbreak actually now becoming a piece of breaking news itself. So the app has ties to China, and allegedly it is producing fake news using artificial intelligence. And here's just one example for you guys. So last Christmas, the app published an alarming piece about a small town shooting. It was headlined, "Christmas Day Tragedy Strikes Bridgeton, New Jersey, amid rising gun violence in small towns." But in reality, no such shooting happened. So local police said in a Facebook post that nothing even similar to this story occurred on Christmas or around Christmas, or even in recent memory for the area they described. So Newsbreak told Reuters that it removed the article 4 days later. So overall, a Reuters review of court files and company memos found that there were dozens of cases where the app used AI tools to publish erroneous stories and create stories from local news sites under fictitious bylines. So Newsbreak is headquartered in California and has offices actually in Beijing and Shanghai, and several of the company's former employees told Reuters that the app's main algorithm is developed in China, and it's backed by a Chinese company that the Pentagon said were working with the Beijing military.
Wow. So a news app that writes fiction in cooperation with the Beijing military. And they remove those false stories around a business week later. Can't make that stuff up. All right. Well, let's move on because Netflix started rolling out the first major revamp of its television app. Tell us more. What's going on?
Yeah, so for some people, they'll see a new design. So it is the biggest TV app redesign actually in 10 years. So Netflix is testing changes aimed at helping viewers more quickly decide what they want to watch. And the video streaming pioneer wants to increase the time that viewers spend on the app, of course, to help retain customers and draw subscribers to its new lower cost plans with advertising. So revisions to the homepage include enlarging title cards, reorganizing information, and highlighting easy to read tidbits. So a subset of Netflix's nearly 270 million users around the globe began seeing the new format actually yesterday. So the company will take feedback, and it's going to possibly make changes before unveiling it more widely.
Yeah, now you get this My Netflix tab, so you can watch movies that you started but you never finished. And they're also going to keep giving those users personalized suggestions. GameStop, big movements there. What's happening?
Yeah, it seems like GameStop in the spotlight a lot recently. So shares of GameStop surged nearly 50% yesterday. And this is after online stock influencer known as Roaring Kitty posted on YouTube that he would host a live stream today, actually. So yesterday's surge was the latest in a bout of volatile trading in the struggling video game sellers' shares that kicked off last month after the influencer, whose real name is Keith Gill, when he returned to social media platform X after a 3-year hiatus. So the Roaring Kitty channel on YouTube yesterday showed an upcoming live stream scheduled for 12 p.m. Eastern time today. I'm very curious as to what he's going to talk about.
Yeah, same. And it's soaring before the live stream even happened. Let's see if history is repeating itself. All right, and Boeing's new capsule just arrived at the International Space Station. What are the details?
Yeah, definitely good news here. So the capsule and two-member NASA crew safely docked with the ISS yesterday, and the rendezvous was achieved despite an earlier loss of several guidance-controlled jet thrusters, which NASA and Boeing said should not compromise the mission. So the veteran astronauts arrived on the orbiting platform after a flight of nearly 27 hours. They were greeted and with warm hugs and handshakes by the outpost's current 7 resident crew members, 4 fellow U.S. astronauts and 3 Russian cosmonauts. One of the astronauts said it was nice to be attached to the big city in the sky. 27 hours.
Yeah, wow.
Long flight.
And it was the 3rd try, so it definitely felt even better to celebrate. Great they made it. Was a nail biter. All right. Thank you so much, Don Ma, host of NTD's Business Matters. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Stay with us. Dday commemorations are in full swing in Normandy. Historical reenactments are bringing the unforgettable events back to life. A local woman recalls how it felt as a child to see American paratroopers landing.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shenyun.
بیست و سه سال 16 سال عمري ما هفت
ما داعش کردیم برانبر خشک و دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چم که دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارو خی که است های به تایبت عراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهر فيدان نبو باوان رحم نبو
قدامنا سؤالان من خادران نزل باوان نفستم بس منا قوبس ناش بجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارو وان همو جيبري تي حملي زارو يدمع واسسي وان همو جيبري
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که همانه روزانه دست فروشیده
اليوم التوزيع
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Good morning again, and we continue with D-Day commemorations that continue in Normandy. Several historical reenactments evoked the unforgettable memory of that day.
A local woman recalls how it felt as a child to see American paratroopers landing. NTD's correspondent David Vives has the story.
More than 300 paratroopers from the UK, Belgium, and the United States parachuted into a historic D-Day drop zone. The reenactment honored the brave soldiers who landed in the fields near Sannerville, France, designated Drop Zone K in June 1944. Lieutenant Max Phillips said he won't forget the drop for a very long time.
It's absolutely a privilege to be here today. My great-great-uncle was here on D-Day, landed at Sword Beach, and then fought pretty hard, as you can probably imagine.
Phillips says speaking with veterans is a rewarding experience.
They are passionate that we are the future, and that is something that is very humbling, but it also places a great deal of responsibility on our shoulders to make sure that we live up to what they expect and what the standard is.
The original D-Day airborne landings were critical to the success of the Allied invasion, as paratroopers secured roads, bridges and other strategic points inland from the beaches. Paratroopers filling the sky evokes a strong memory for Danny Patricks, who watched them arrive 80 years ago.
The night was like daylight. There were little flares at the end of the little parachutes, and then the big parachutes with the soldiers at the end. It was fabulous for a child. It was something incredible.
Her mother decided to sue her a dress made out of a US parachute, a story she tells in a new documentary, The Girl Who Wore Freedom. And there's one detail she remembers clearly.
You could say that we fell asleep German and woke up American, Because when the Americans came, we no longer heard the boots with the nails that Germans wore. American soldiers had those rubber boots. That was very different.
D-Day commemoration and other events will last until June 16th in the area. David Duves, NTD News, Normandy.
Just an incredible story.
Yeah, very moving. It's really been the focus all this week, as it should, you know, to remind us of the sacrifices that were given.
Yes, definitely history is very important to pay attention to when it comes to this.
Right. All right. And yesterday marked the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings in Normandy, France.
On June 6, 1944, Allied forces stormed the beaches there, and they were met by thousands of Nazi soldiers. 2,500 Americans died in the attack.
And since that day, Gold Star families have spent their lives trying to honor the fallen servicemen buried an ocean away.
One daughter's mission is to make sure that doesn't change. Take a look.
Graves fill the land. Stones mark the graves. And memories float all around the cemeteries of Normandy, where a handful of beach sand reveals a name. Corporal Frank Elliott, just another fallen soldier to some, but the world to Rhonda Elliott, only 1 year old when her father, Corporal Frank Elliott, was killed.
This one, this is a picture of my father and me, the only picture I have of us together.
80 years later, that photo and a handful of letters between her father and mother are the only artifacts she has to remember him by.
I started to read them, and they were fantastic. They were so beautiful. And that's when I first felt like I knew my dad.
For years, Rhonda Elliott was able to call on the American Battle Monuments Commission to place flowers that she paid for on her father's grave at Normandy.
People walking through the cemeteries, they see these flowers and they know that there's somebody at home that still cares. And it worked beautifully for 60 plus years. It was almost seamless. You know, we contacted the ABMC, filled out a form, sent them the money, and then they took it from there.
But 9 years ago, the ABMC shut down the Flower Fund, encouraging families to instead go directly to florists overseas.
If you contact the florist by phone, there's definitely a language barrier because most people in those countries don't speak English very well, although they do still take a picture and send it to us. But the price is higher.
For nearly a decade, Rhonda Elliott and other Gold Star children, the children of these men, have been on a mission of their own to get that flowers program back up and running. They now have some high-profile help.
I think, it's minimal cost to the government, minimal work for the government. I suppose there was some administrative costs in the battle monuments, but I can't imagine very much. And even if it was a lot, I mean, they did give their lives for the country. I mean, it's the least we can do, it would seem to me. But it just doesn't seem to me that it's that much work. And even if it was a lot of work, I mean, just consider the sacrifice. That was a lot of work, too.
There's also a bill in Congress with support from both parties to restart the flower program. All Rhonda Elliott's parents had were letters to bridge the ocean between them. But for Rhonda Elliott, all she has is flowers.
People who have family members overseas in foreign cemeteries, we cannot go there easily. I've only been twice to visit my father's grave, and many people in my situation can't go at all because they can't afford it. And these men bought us our freedom, and we feel like they should be honored. And we paid for that freedom too. We paid for it by living a lifetime without our fathers, and our mothers paid for it by living a lifetime without their husbands.
Yeah, I think that brings across a great point that it's not only the servicemen, but also the families that were left behind that paid their sacrifice, a great sacrifice for that.
Yeah, definitely a support system going on there. And I was reading how some of these soldiers that stormed the beaches were in their 20s when they did all this. And there was one veteran who was 17 at the time that he invaded France to destroy the Nazi aggression. And he actually fudged the numbers on his application. He was 16 years old when he applied to the Army in 1943, so he can go and fight.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and we are heading to a quick break at this note. We'll be right back, though, with more, so stay with us.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are the top stories today. The U.S. announces another $225 million aid to Ukraine. This after President Biden apologizes to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy for a holdup in U.S. military aid. The two leaders are in Paris to commemorate Dday. We have more on their meeting today.
President Biden and 16 other world leaders call for Hamas to accept a ceasefire in Gaza. And Houthi terrorists in Yemen vow to step up attacks on Israel, unveiling what they say is a new missile. We have the latest on the conflict in the Middle East.
Former President Trump and President Biden talk immigration, and RFK Jr.'s campaign comes under threat. The latest updates in the race to the White House.
Speaking out against the Chinese Communist Party could come with severe consequences, and possibly even in the U.S., as the CCP extends the persecution of dissidents outside of its borders.
A man takes his girlfriend on a hike in record-breaking heat for a heartwarming reason. We have their story.
Boeing's Starliner spacecraft has successfully docked at the International Space Station. That's after a possible mission-compromising leak aboard the spacecraft.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Welcome. Today is Friday, June 7th, and the top news today. The U.S. just announced another $225 million military aid to Ukraine. This after President Biden met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Paris.
Biden reaffirmed U.S. support for Ukraine and said Americans are in it for the long haul. Zelenskyy expressed his gratitude and likened it to the U.S. saving Europe in World War II.
And this comes ahead of Biden's major speech on freedom and democracy. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao is in Paris.
And President Biden on Friday will give a speech about freedom and democracy at Point du Hoc in Normandy. And that's a famous place in American military history, as that's the tall cliff where Army Rangers scaled to take fortified German positions. The White House says he will talk about the stakes of that moment in World War II and frame it as an existential fight between freedom and dictatorship. More importantly, he'll use that historical moment to talk about the present and contrast himself with his 2024 rival, former President Trump. Yesterday at a D-Day commemoration ceremony also in Normandy, Biden, though without mentioning his rival by name, struck common themes in his 2024 campaign, among which defending democracy.
We defend democracy. We stand together.
Bolstering NATO.
Isolationism was not the answer 80 years ago and is not the answer today.
And supporting Ukraine.
We will not walk away.
But today we expect to hear a more explicit tone from President Biden targeting voters at home in the U.S. He'll also talk about the dangers of isolating the U.S. on the world stage, which he has accused Trump of trying to do. Reporting from Paris, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Meanwhile, former President Trump attended his first rally yesterday since his guilty verdict in New York.
Addressing supporters, he said he will reverse President Biden's executive order on border security if he wins the election. Meanwhile, Biden says Trump is to blame for the current border situation.
I want to send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home where they belong. They have to go back home. Because quite simply, Joe Biden wants an invasion. I want a deportation.
Former President Trump told his Arizona supporters their state has become a, quote, dumping ground. He promised one of his first actions if re-elected would be to reverse President Biden's border security order. Biden's new border restrictions will prevent immigrants illegally crossing the southern border from seeking asylum if the average number of illegal crossings goes above 2,500 a day. Trump Thursday called the order pro-invasion, pro-child trafficking, and pro-drug dealer. He vowed to terminate what he called the Biden administration's open border policies. He said he would impose tariffs on countries that don't work to stop the flow of illegal immigrants into the U.S. Meanwhile, President Biden said in an exclusive ABC interview that he issued the order only after Republicans shot down what he called much broader reforms in Congress.
They sat for 4 weeks. They came up with a proposal that would have gone much further, would have been the most significant change in border security in our history. Guess what? Trump didn't want it, so he got on the phone and told people don't support it.
When asked if he is ready to debate Trump, Biden said yes. He added that he wants to remind people of what he believes and what Trump believes. Biden said he is about the country while Trump is about himself.
Trump said in interviews yesterday he would announce his running mate at the Republican National Convention next month. Switching gears, in the Middle East, the leader of the Houthis in Yemen says the group is working with other Iranian-backed terrorists to increase attacks against Israel.
The Houthis claim to have attacked 2 ships at a northern Israeli port. Israel's military says that's not true.
The Houthis released a video of a missile launch they say targeted Israel's southern port city, Eilat.
The terrorist group called it a new type of ballistic missile and said it was unveiling it for the first time. It's not clear what speed the missile travels at or when the video was filmed.
The Houthis aren't known to have the ability to build complicated missile and guidance systems locally. The missile resembles an Iranian missile that Iran claims is hypersonic. Iran has repeatedly been caught arming the Houthis despite a United Nations embargo.
The U.S. Central Command says the Houthis launched 1 anti-ship ballistic missile yesterday from Yemen over the Red Sea. CENTCOM said it destroyed 9 Houthi drones and 2 drone boats over the last day. President Biden and leaders from 16 other countries are urging Hamas to accept a ceasefire deal. The first phase of Biden's proposed deal would last at least 6 weeks. It includes a complete ceasefire, Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and the release of women, elderly, and wounded hostages. That would be in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Additionally, up to 600 truckloads of food would reach Gaza daily. In Phase 2, Hamas would release its remaining captives, including male Israeli soldiers. If successful, Israel would withdraw entirely, making the ceasefire permanent. The third phase involves reconstructing Gaza and Hamas turning over the remains of dead hostages. Top Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, have said any deal that leaves Hamas in power is unacceptable.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he will present the truth about the war against Hamas before Congress.
House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell announced yesterday that Netanyahu will address a joint session of Congress on July 24th.
It was not immediately clear if Netanyahu would meet with President Biden during his visit. In recent weeks, the president has become more critical of Israel's tactics.
Senate Leader Chuck Schumer said in a separate statement that he joined Republican leaders in making the invitation to Netanyahu.
On a different note, dissidents say the Chinese Communist Party is extending its persecution beyond the borders of mainland China.
Now, protesting against the CCP, even in America, could come with severe consequences, including death threats. NTD's Bill Thomas brings us more.
Shen Shua left China shortly after the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests and massacre. She moved to Canada and began working as a journalist, writer, and human rights activist speaking out against the CCP. However, with her growing influence, so grew China's attempt to suppress her voice, and she told us she received harassing tweets, messages, and more.
It's about hundreds of tweets every day, and also they sent me private messages, and they sent me emails, 100 per day.
She tells us one of the tweets indicated a specific date regarding when she'd be murdered at a public venue.
I saw a tweet that says the death time of you is May 31st of 2024. I don't know if your head is harder than the 9 millimeters.
This tweeted threat was one which she couldn't ignore.
This is a death threat. It's not only a threatening to myself because it is a public event. It is a threatening to all of the people. So my friend suggests me to report to the police station.
After she made contact with law enforcement, they suggested she avoid the event or urge the organizers to cancel it. However, she refused to be intimidated.
I said, no, I won't do that. Because what they have been trying to silence me, they want me to shut up. So if I'm not going, if I want them, the organizer, to cancel the event, that means they win.
Xinhua also says giving in to the CCP's threats and intimidation would have a domino effect.
When they win this battle, then they will copy this method to other people, and they will silence all of the activists. So I have to continue.
Last Friday, Xinhua attended the symposium on overthrowing the evil tyranny of the Chinese Communist Party held at the Taiwan Center in Rosemead, California. To ensure everyone's safety, the LA County Sheriff's Department and FBI agents were in attendance, and there were no reported conflicts. Bill Thomas and Jimmy Ma, NTD News, Los Angeles.
Very serious. And I definitely have heard stories like this before from China critics, also against their families, that the CCP just knew where they were and when. And it actually, as a matter of fact, I know that at least one of the senior managers here at NTD has similar stories to tell.
Well, this is a very strong bravery that she's exhibiting here, and good for her for standing up to it. And this is just CCP interference. It's nothing new, and of course it's very serious. Thankfully, nothing happened to her, and she was able to speak freely.
That's right. And she brought across also a very good point, that giving in to the threats possibly is much more dangerous. So yeah, let's keep that in mind. And we're moving on that note, because in 1943, an 18-year-old British woman applied to the Women's Royal Navy's Naval Service, otherwise known as WRENS.
She worked in an observation tower, but had no idea she was watching over soldiers training for D-Day, the biggest operation of the war. Let's hear her story.
18-year-old Dorothea Barron was determined to serve her country and help the war effort. However, there was one thing stopping her from being able to enlist, but she found a clever solution.
I was determined to be a Wren, and I wasn't really tall enough. You were supposed to be 5 feet 3 inches, and I was never 5 feet 3 inches in my life. So I put my hair into a bun, and I put cardboard in my shoes to make me taller, and I stood very tall. And they said, Then they saw I was so determined. I think they allowed me to crawl in.
Barron used semaphore and Morse code for communication in her observation tower job. If she saw trouble, Barron would unfurl her semaphore flags and signal for help.
We were watching over them, shall we say. If they got into difficulty, we would then inform their headquarters, their people on the land. Boat so-and-so has been hit, and things like that.
Barron was a small part of the team that developed the Mulberry Harbors. They were a system of breakwaters, pontoons, and floating roadways that were built at Omaha and Sword beaches for use after D-Day. During the war, her sharp eyes were prized by the service.
We were treated as equals, as sisters, not as some prospect.
All that changed once the war ended.
After the war, it was back to the kitchen, back to getting a meal on the table for when the wage earner came home. Because after the war, it was thought that any woman who worked was taking away a job from a man.
Barron will be attending the 80th D-Day anniversary in Normandy. She's interested in looking for traces of something specific.
I'm going to be thinking, I wonder if there's any mulberry left underneath on the sand, and have a look through the waters to see.
About 2 million soldiers, 4 million tons of supplies, and 500,000 vehicles rolled through the two harbors by the end of 1944. They contributed to Allied victory in the Battle of Normandy.
And after the break, a man takes his girlfriend on a hike in record-breaking heat. For a heartwarming reason, we have their story.
Boeing's Starliner spacecraft has successfully docked at the International Space Station. This after a possible mission-compromising leak aboard the spacecraft.
And it's National Donut Day. Bakeries and cafes nationwide are celebrating with deals. We take a look at one bakery that's been cooking up a special kind of donut.
I'm Richard Karn, and I love my hose. It ain't those old hoses. This is my hose. The new Pocket Hose Copper Bullet, now infused with real copper, so your water is always clean and lead-free. Just turn on the water and watch your hose grow and grow. And when you turn off the water, away it goes. Our new inner tube uses 3 layers of high-strength latex on the inside. Then it's wrapped in a new polymer filament jacket, 3 times stronger than the other hoses. But my favorite part of our new hose build? The oversized, easy-to-grip fittings. Get the super light 25-foot Pocket Hose Copper Bullet today for only $29.99. But wait, call now and get our copper spray nozzle with our exclusive thumb drive free. This is an exclusive release of our newest Pocket Hose. Order now.
Call 1-800-960-8919. That's 1-800-960-8919 or visit copperbullethose.com. Order now.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call 800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now. 800-494-1562.
Welcome back. The first major heat wave to hit the Southwest this year may be breaking soon.
But the record-breaking weather didn't stop one man from popping the question to his girlfriend while hiking near Phoenix.
A dangerous heat wave is gripping much of the Southwest, and while most stay inside and enjoy the comfort of air conditioning, some outdoor types brave the heat despite the possible danger.
Hike was hot, but I feel like we came prepared and we started early. We knew it was going to be hot.
This man had a heartwarming motive for taking his girlfriend hiking in the sweltering heat.
The views were beautiful. We didn't make it quite to the top because she was a little nervous with the heat, so I proposed to her when the sun rose right by the benches right up front, and she waited while I hiked the rest of it.
The newly engaged couple were extra careful and carried plenty of water to avoid dehydration. Unfortunately, not everyone is as savvy about staying safe outdoors in this kind of heat.
About 3 liters in the pack. Neither of us ever finish it, but we always have enough to actually hand out to people because surprisingly enough, there are people on the trails who do not carry water. It's shocking.
While a bit of cooling is expected this weekend in Nevada, it will remain quite hot with highs in the 80s and 90s. In southern Arizona, cooling down for the weekend means high forecast between 104 to 110 instead of today's forecast high of 113 degrees. And the official start of summer is still 2 weeks away.
And success for Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. A 2-member crew has safely docked at the International Space Station.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the rendezvous, a key test of the new spaceship's flightworthiness.
The flight for the Starliner capsule's inaugural crew took nearly 27 hours, arriving at the space station on Thursday. The spacecraft launched up to the heavens from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Astronaut Suni Williams was first through the hatch. Unbridled joy at her successful return to the International Space Station. Starliner Commander Butch Wilmore comes through next, an emotional arrival as the astronaut warmly hugs his friends and co-workers. Up in space, the politics of Earth seem a world away, as Russian cosmonaut and space station commander Oleg Kononenko has a few words of welcome for his American colleagues.
Butch, Sunny, we are glad to see them all here in International Space Station. We are very happy.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we are thrilled as well. I'm not sure we could have gotten a better welcome. I mean, we had music, we had Matt was dancing. It was great. What a wonderful place to be. Great to be back here.
Astronaut Suni Williams gave thanks to her family for their support and says she's now with her other family in space.
We're just happy as can be to be up in space, one in Starliner, on an Atlas V, and then here on the International Space Station. It just doesn't get much better.
The docking was achieved despite an earlier loss of several guidance-controlled jet thrusters, some due to a helium propulsion leak. NASA and Boeing said the leaks had been partially fixed and should not compromise the mission. The Starliner autonomously docked with the ISS, while both were orbiting some 250 miles over the southern Indian Ocean. The two vehicles soared around the globe together at about 17,500 miles per hour. Getting Starliner to this point has been a fraught process for Boeing, under its over $4 billion fixed-price contract with NASA. During their 8-day mission, the newly arrived crew will conduct various experiments and tests aboard the space station. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And also a video released of crews pulling a 12-foot alligator from a roadside ditch in Texas.
The massive reptile was hoisted using a grapple truck and placed in the back of a container truck.
A Mont Belvieu city official said a member of the local police department spotted the alligator in a drainage ditch. Animal Control was contacted and they suggested teaming up with the Texas Public Works Department. Because of the reptile's enormous size, they used a grapple truck to move it.
The removal concluded with no injuries to the animal or to the public. Texas Parks and Wildlife says alligators are common across the southern U.S. and found in various types of waterways. Alligators can grow up to 14 feet in length.
Scary stuff. Less scary. Today is National Donut Day, and bakeries and cafes nationwide are celebrating with deals.
NTD's Jason Blair caught up with a shop that makes a special type of donut that's been gaining popularity. Take a look.
Some people like them for breakfast, some people anytime. But whatever the case, the popular fried treat has been getting its own National Day since 1938. National Donut Day was established to honor the Salvation Army's volunteers who served donuts to soldiers during World War I. Since then, the holiday has been held on the first Friday in June. Popular chains are offering deals. This Friday, Krispy Kreme has a no-purchase necessary deal with a free donut of your choice. They also have a buy one dozen and get a second dozen donuts for $2. Dunkin' Donuts are giving customers a free classic donut of their choice with any drink purchase on Friday. Now for National Donut Day, I don't want to leave out one of my personal favorites, the mochi donut. Now it's a combination of Japanese mochi and American-style donuts.
So mochi donut is a little different than a regular traditional donut because we mix mochi, the rice flour, into the donut. So it makes the texture a little more chewier and lighter.
Anna and Daniel have been running Mochi Nut in Leesburg, Virginia for about 2 years. They rotate their flavors, but said there are a few that are always a hit.
A lot of people love the churro, cookies and cream. People would love fruity flavors like mango and strawberry.
They're very doughy and they have great flavor, especially with the frosting. And they have little sections that you can take apart rather than eating a whole.
Yeah, that's why I like them more than the regular donuts.
Yeah.
It's a lot less stuff than the other one. The other one's just a bunch of like bread. This one's just a lot better.
The mochi donut is a somewhat newer concept. The current widely used version can be traced back to Hawaii in the 1990s. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Jason, yeah, you and me both. I love that mochi donut. Mochi nut?
That's a really cool idea. Yeah, and keep in mind that for loyalty members at 7-Eleven, you can get a $1 glazed donut today.
Really? You know what? I didn't actually know today was Donut Day, and I will probably pass by one on my way home because I love it. And who knew that the history and the roots behind that is so wholesome?
Yeah. Well, I just remember growing up as a kid, like when you had munchkins popping out at school, it was like a dream come true.
Yeah. It would still be a dream come true if somebody brought me some. But yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, good to know. I'll head right out. So that's also why we're wrapping up our show right here, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD's News Today broadcast at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's coming up.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
That's right. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.